Protect your DNA. BioPQQ can promote formation of new mitochondria. Infowarsstore.com.
As The Guardian points out, last week was the best of weeks and the worst of weeks for Dennis Hastert. Of course, he began the week by closing on a $25 billion merger between a couple of the largest tobacco companies, creating a 34% market share for the resulting company. That's what these guys do. Of course, Dennis Hastert and the rest of the politicians, just as we see with the Trans-Pacific Partnership, the Transatlantic Partnerships, we see that what they're trying to do is consolidate ownership of everything to one or two companies. That's what all these companies are trying to do. That's their mechanism. And of course, people like Dennis Hastert, they're their guys. They're their go-to guys that they go to for this. But then, of course, by the end of the week, he had been caught in something that may send him to jail for 530 years. Not the sexual assault, but the Patriot Act, structuring of cash, the war on cash, the criminalizing of cash that he put into the Patriot Act. That may wind up sending him to jail for 530 years. Now, it's interesting to look at this, of course. It's what they do. They lobby federal regulators. They say, and look at the money that he's making as he's doing this, as he's creating these monopolies for various industries. They say even though he was employed as a lobbyist, he was still getting paid $40,000 per month. $40,000 per month. That's just his retirement benefits from being Speaker of the House in Congress. But then, of course, he also had speaking fees. He had consultancy fees. He sat on the board of CME Group. That's the Chicago-based financial giant that owns things like the entire Chicago Board of Trade. Okay, he's on the board of directors of that. What's he been doing? Well, he's been working for the government of Turkey. He's been working for big energy, for real estate interests, for spa services. I wouldn't think that would be too large. But then, of course, big tobacco. And of course, one of these companies that merged with Reynolds, Lorillard Tobacco, had paid him $2.6 million in 2011, $2.3 million in 2012, $2.7 million in 2013. So isn't that nice how that all worked out? He was just a high school wrestling coach, and he had a penchant for evidently sexually molesting his students, and he's pulled out of that and put into a position of authority because they can control him. And it certainly paid off handsomely. But he's not the only one, of course. We've got an article up on Infowars.com tracking how little it cost to buy congressmen. He had a pretty high price, but the other guys will sell you out a lot cheaper than that. This is how little it costs Goldman Sachs to bribe America's senators in order to fast-track Obama's TPP bill. And what we see here is a chart. And if you look at the chart, you'll see Goldman Sachs up at the top, way more than anybody else contributing to an organization called the U.S. Business Coalition for TPP. Now, what they did was they took data from the FEC, the Federal Election Commissions, and they looked to see who were the biggest contributors to this pro-TPP lobbying group. Then they looked to see who got the money. But let's first look at the contributors. We've got Goldman Sachs out there, more than 2-to-1 over the number 2, which is UPS. FedEx is also pretty close up there as well. So I guess you're going to see a lot more business being shipped back and forth if they have this trade agreement. I don't know how much you get paid for shipping a job. I don't know if you ship jobs using UPS and FedEx. I think you use something else for that. But then, of course, the banks are there quite a bit. Citigroup, others. Facebook is there. And then, of course, we see media companies like Time Warner and Viacom. They say it didn't cost that much, actually. They spread the cash around. You remember at the beginning of the week, there was that filibuster from Democrats, and basically they weren't really trying to stop the bill. They're just saying, you're going to have to pony up with more cash. That cash turned out to be $1.1 million. They say of the total given, an average of $17,676 was donated to each of the yes votes. They say that average Republicans got $19.6, the average Democrats got $9.7 thousand. And it's interesting that you see a couple of the names that have really been fighting hard to stop Rand Paul on the Patriot Act. We see Senator Richard Burr of North Carolina got $60,000, because we're just talking about the averages. And then we see Chuck Grassley of Iowa got $35,000. Some others get some special mention on this. We need to remember who stood for this and who caved in for it. Now, of course, in this article, one thing that they got wrong was the votes. They crossed the votes up the people who voted to stop the filibuster, and that was unanimous for Republicans that were there. Nevertheless, when it actually came to the fast-track authority, there were 5 Republicans who stood up against this. And that was Rand Paul, Pete Sessions, both of whom had actually looked at the Trans-Pacific Partnership. Most others hadn't. Also, Mike Lee stood against that, and 2 others stood against the leadership and stood against the fast-track authority. And of course, the fast-track authority that Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio and Lindsey Graham, people who are running for president, the fast-track authority that they signed onto essentially lies to us, telling us that this is not a treaty. And we know full well that it is a treaty. By definition, it is a treaty. It's an agreement over commerce between one or more nations. That is a treaty. But they lie to us. They tell us that it is a trade agreement. They tell us that it is a partnership so they can get it through the Senate without the required 67 votes. So when you see a senator who signed on to this, understand that they have betrayed you at a fundamental level, even before you see what's in these secretly negotiated trade agreements. But if you think the senators sold out cheap, the trade representative, the key trade representative, held out for a lot more. This is an article from Liberty Blitzkrieg, and they say how Obama's top trade representative, Michael Froman, received millions from Citigroup during the financial crisis. And of course, he's being paid very well by the people who are lobbying for this. In a press release, groups that are opposed to the TPP and the TTIP highlighted the links between Citigroup, which has lobbied extensively on those, and the fast-track authority, and with Michael Froman, who is the U.S. trade representative, who is negotiating. He's taken the lead in these secret negotiations with the 400 or so corporate lobbyists that we're not allowed to see because you and I, the American public, we're not stakeholders anymore. These people own everything. They are the stakeholders. They say he received more than $4 million and a golden parachute from Citigroup upon leaving the large financial institution to join the Obama administration in 2009 and began these trade negotiations. They say no one is pushing harder to pass the multinational corporate giveaway masquerading as free trade known as the Trans-Pacific Partnership, TPP, than Obama's top trade representative, Michael Froman. This is what the New York Times points out. They say he previously worked for Citigroup, on the largest recipients of taxpayer bailout money. See, that's why we're saying this is not free trade. This is crony capitalism. This is written by the same banks and the same big corporations that benefited from the bailouts, especially the banks. This is a guy who got millions as part of that bailout, and now he is doing it again. And that's precisely what is going on with this. This is nothing but crony capitalism for the benefit of a few, selling your jobs, exporting your jobs, and importing workers. They say, noting deep ties between the country's top trade negotiator and Wall Street banks, 10 groups that represent millions of Americans are calling on the White House to make public all communications between the U.S. Trade Representative Michael Froman and the massive financial institutions that stand to benefit from proposed trade deals. Well, good luck with that. We can't get the emails of Hillary Clinton. We can't see what the IRS is doing to people. We can't see the trade agreement. We can certainly ask and we can point out that this is something that is being done in secret, but I don't think we're going to see the secretive emails between the trade representative, former Citigroup official who got millions after the bank bailouts.
Infowars Life and InfowarsLife.com is extremely excited to announce our latest release, Winter Sun, a revolutionary type of vitamin D3. Winter Sun is a premium quality vitamin D3 nutritional supplement. It is produced by extracting oil from healthy, nutrient-dense plants known as lichens. Every batch is analyzed for purity and D3 content. It's completely free of toxins and allergens. Simply put, if you want the best at an extremely low price, this is it. Winter Sun is the result of our pursuit of the best source of vitamin D3. The research and development took over 2 years, but the result, as verified by independent laboratories, is the best vegan vitamin D3 product in the world. Read the facts at InfowarsLife.com about Winter Sun Vitamin D3. Not only does vitamin D3 promote a healthy mood, but vitamin D supports our memory and brain function, something the globalists are targeting. Visit Infowars.com today or call 888-253-3139.
You are watching the Infowars Nightly News, which airs 7 p.m. Central at InfoWarsNews.com. And your support is helping us defend liberty worldwide.